Hi, I'm Nola, and today we have the pleasure of talking about one of the most loved plants in the entire world, the hydrangea. With their clusters of ball-like flowers in colours like sky blue, pink, red, purple and white, they're a must-have for every garden. While prized for their striking beauty, these plants can also be a bit of a problem solver because they can be grown in the shade, and that's a notoriously tricky spot in any garden. And in recent years, breeders have been developing new varieties. Some are more sun-loving, there are new colours, and some are really compact and can go into pots. In the Hydrangeas genus, there are over 75 different species, and they're all native to Asia and the Americas. The name hydrangea actually comes from the Greek, hydro being water, and aegeon being vessel, because the seed heads look a little bit like cups. One of the best known varieties of hydrangea is the Hydrangea macrophylla, or mobhead hydrangea. Macrophylla actually means large leaf, and so sometimes you get leaves that can be as big as dinner plates. They have these large rounded blooms, and they can grow to about 2 metres tall. Another popular variety is the lacecap hydrangea. They have very showy blooms around the outside of the flower and some clusters of little tiny flowers in the middle. If you're looking for something a little more unusual, look for the obsidian hydrangeas. They have very distinctive black stems that stand out against the rich green foliage. There are the you and me hydrangeas that have very distinctive double flowers, and there's also the endless summer hydrangea. These are distinctive because they're repeat bloomers. Most hydrangeas only get one flower on each stem each year, but these will repeat flower all year round. So these flowers are perfect for floral arrangements. The Sunday Frey variety is more sun tolerant, and of course there are lots of dwarf varieties now that are perfect for putting in a pot on a south-facing balcony to brighten up your area. Oak leaf hydrangeas have beautiful conical flowers and they're very drought tolerant. There are even climbing varieties of hydrangeas, so there's truly one for every garden. One of the most interesting aspects of hydrangeas is their ability to change the colour of their plumes. This is directly related to the pH levels in the soil. So if you want to have blue blooms, you use more acidic soil, and if you want to have pink blooms, you have more alkaline soil. Now it's interesting also, it's not necessarily the pH which changes the colour, it's the amount of aluminium in the soil. So if it's in acidic soil, they can draw up the aluminium and turn blue. If they're in alkaline soil, they can't. And if they're in neutral soil, it's a cross between the two, so you get purple flowers, and white just stays white. Now, it's really best practice to accept the colour that you've got, but if you really want to change it, you can test your soil pH using either a pH meter or a simple testing kit. And then it's a question of changing the acidity. So you can add some garden lime or calcium to make your flowers pink. If you want to turn your flowers blue, you can acidify the soil using lime sulphur, and then you add some aluminium in the form of bluing powder. Some gardeners like to add coffee grounds to the soil to acidify it. No matter the pH of your soil, all hydrangeas benefit from being in a free draining soil. So you can add some lovely compost into your soil, and they can also grow in slightly clay soils too, but add a little bit of gypsum beforehand. When it comes to the best position for your hydrangea, most prefer morning sun and a bit of afternoon shade, although you can get some varieties that will grow in the full sun or the full shade. The most common variety though is the mobhead, and they preferred filtered light. You can actually plant them somewhere near a fence or under a tree, as that will give them the protection that they need. Hydrangeas can be propagated in early spring or early summer. You simply take a cutting about 15 centimetres long, just under a leaf node. You remove the bottom leaves, and then we're snipping all the top leaves into half, so this minimises water loss. Then we're getting some hormone gel, and we're dipping it. Then we make a little hole in the propagating mix, and putting it down about 1/3 of the way down the stem, and pat the soil in, and giving it water. And then you're popping the pot into a bright spot out of direct sunlight. And after a couple of months, the roots will start to take and you can transplant it into a bigger pot or out into your garden. When you're pruning your hydrangeas in late autumn or winter, you can actually take hardwood cuttings at that time and propagate those as well. If buying a young plant, you can plant the hydrangeas in either a pot or the ground, depending on the variety. But it's a good idea to be planting either in early autumn or early spring, as that way you're avoiding the frosts of winter. Preparation is really important when you're planting a hydrangea. You'll be digging a hole about 2 to 3 times the root ball and you'll be backfilling with a combination of some compost and some slow-release fertiliser. If you're planting into a pot, you can plant into premium potting mix, and it's a good idea in both cases to use a little bit of mulch around the top, keeping it a couple of centimetres away from the stem. Hydrangeas can get to be quite big plants depending on the variety, so you might want to space them between 1 to 3 metres apart. But a good idea is always to check the spacing on the label. With your hydrangeas planted and growing, it's time to help them thrive. These shrubs are naturally pest and disease resistant, but there are a few common things to look out for. Most of these pests and diseases can be avoided by watering to the soil level and also keeping the underside of the plant debris and weed free. Anthracnose is a fungal disease that spreads during warm, humid weather. Water dropping onto the ground and splashing back up again causes the fungus to spread all over the leaves, and it starts as little brown dots which will then take over an entire leaf. You can get rid of it though by disposing of the affected leaves and then spraying the remaining leaves with a copper fungicide. Powdery mildew is another disease that's caused by humid conditions. It's characterised by white powder all over the top of the leaves. Again, you can get rid of this by removing the worst affected leaves and spraying the remainder with a fungicide. Botrytis blight is another fungal disease that affects hydrangeas. You'll notice little sort of wet patches on the leaves, and then these turn into brown patches and they can spread from the leaves to the flowers. Again, we're removing the worst affected flowers and leaves, and we can spray either with a fungicide or a neem oil. With pests and diseases held in check, you can then concentrate on feeding and watering your plants throughout the year. The hydrangea is what's classed as a gross feeder, and spring is a perfect time to feed them. You can use some controlled release fertiliser, as well as a little bit of extra compost and manure, and then you can top it up with some mulch. And if you have got any spindly shoots, this is the time to be cutting them off. Moving into summer, it's essential to keep these plants well watered or the blooms will suffer. You can always install a drip irrigation system if you're a bit worried about that, and make sure it comes on at least once a week for a really deep water. Potted hydrangeas, of course, will have to be watered almost every day. Also, if any flowers finish at this time, you can trim them down to the nearest shoot. Hydrangeas make the best cut flowers, and summer is the time to fill your vases. Cut the blooms in the morning, put them in some tepid water, and you can add some flower food. Early autumn is an ideal time to plant hydrangeas because they can get their root system established before the cold weather hits, and a little bit of organic mulch around the top will help protect the roots as well. For established shrubs, winter is a really good time to prune. If you've had flowers on a stem, you can cut right down into the base, but if you haven't had a flower on this one, just take it back a little bit, and that's where you'll have the flowers next summer. What you want will also determine how far you prune it. If you want to keep your hydrangeas very tall, you can just take the top shoots off. But if you want to totally rejuvenate it, you can take the shoots down a lot further. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the world-renowned hydrangeas. There are so many varieties to choose from, so pop down to your local Bunnings and pick one that's right for you. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips and tricks.